Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be back again. Last year was my first time, and I'm really happy to be back. So let's start with a little interactive task. Maybe you can get out your mobile for a short time, just a short time, please, and follow this QR code, Mentimeter. If you follow this website or this survey, I have a question for you. What is a social awareness game for you? You can type in your answers real quick because I don't have time. If you are able to do that, it would be a pleasure if you can join. Sorry. So you have 3 opportunities, but you can just leave it with 1 as well. So if you have the QR code, I'm going to start to show you my agenda. First of all, I'm doing a short introduction and I'm talking about challenges we face now and in the future. Then I will give you a short definition of social awareness game. I will shorten it with SAG and talk about the VUCA model. Then I go to an example by Schutz and Schwarz from 2022. I will talk about why inclusive social awareness games save the gaming education world. I want to limit to this area, which is big enough. Then I will come to my conclusion and discussion. I think there's time for discussion, I think. Yeah, afterwards. Yeah, sure. And then talk about, I'll show you my literature as well. So who's talking? It's me, Linda Rustemeier. I'm from Frankfurt, Germany, and I'm working at Goethe University in Frankfurt. Some of you have already maybe been there. I studied communication, media, and arts. So this is my direction where I come from. And I'm working as an e-learning expert at Goethe University at the Institute of Didactics and of Math and Informatics, called ITB. And I'm right now doing my PhD, and my subject is making diversity-sensitive games in game labs at universities. So it's pretty new, this subject, and old for some. And this is a key component for education. And we already did in the team at Goethe University, we did a game, a social awareness game, if you can call it this way. And you see on the right side, Lola's first semester. It's about a first semester student, Lola, which has a visual impairment. Last year I already talked about it. Maybe some of you guys know it already. And she's meeting her tutor, Ludwig, and she's going around the university and she discovers visual or other impairments and barriers as a reason why she cannot fully inclusive take her studies in a perfect way. So she has some barriers to study, and it was developed in kind of a situation where we had a workshop for digital accessibility, and we figured out that we are more successful when we do kind of identification through avatar, and we called her Lola. She has this visual impairment, and that's why she shows the barriers and how to improve in universities' documents, how you can make yourself an improvement and be more involved in it. So this was my first experience in making games, inclusive games, and be aware of diversity in games. So, and the other question I would like to do in my PhD is how to prove diversity in games through a diversity questionnaire. This is what I want to develop. So, how do we learn from the past? I want to take you back some years ago. So I have this question. It's a rhetorical question. Do you remember the Corona time? Do you remember all these headlines? On the right side, you see a lot of headlines which you may remember, which are still in, I think, maybe our bones, you could say. Like we still remember this time very intense. Also, we do remember something else, crises. You may remember the last weeks, the floods in Austria and Czechia, in Germany and Poland and other countries as well. So we have a lot of challenges, as you see. And there are more, as we already heard in the lecture before. You could say we have a climate crisis. We have a lot of emissions. We have pollution. We have also a lot of ideas about replanning our urban structure, like the architecture, like it's too hot in the cities, as an example. We have extreme weather conditions. Is it a heat wave or a cold wave? We do have questions about now and future, about food, about water, about agriculture, nutrition, health, fitness, and as well about digitalization, data security, Industry 4.0, cooling system for service, and unknown more. We have so many challenges. How can we face it? What should we do? Maybe go in the past to look what has already been done. But first, I want to introduce a model you may already know. It's the VUCA model, which is very convenient for companies to deal with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Ambiguity. So first of all, we have really quickly changing work processes. We have dynamic and changing work processes. So this is volatility for it. Then we have uncertainty. It's very insecure to predict the future. Yeah, we have a lot of innovations, but it's still very difficult. Like I will return to this subject. Then we have the complexity, which is really overwhelming sometimes. We have a lot of system, a lot of elements to think in. Everything is connected to each other and dependent on each other. So the last one, it's not easy to have always an answer. There's no right answer to something, so we have different answers. And they get differently analyzed and described. So I have a spoiler for you already. VUCA is also teaching us it's less about facts and it's more about creative, inclusive rules we have to consider. So sometimes in science is the case that you find the right paper at the right time. I don't know if you have this experience, but this was the case when I found Thomas Schutz and Daniel Schwartz's digital game-based learning book. And it was also for this lecture that I got on the right time to my reading time. So refer to Schutz and Schwartz from 2022. They quote the Gabler Wirtschaftslexikon and to shorten it up, complexity as dependent on each other for a variety of possible behaviors of the elements and change of the course of action. Why? Because you could say they did a VUCA simulation in games. So, as I said, future predictions are kind of lottery. So it's really hard to even predict the weather. It's kind of possible 3 to 7 days in advance, but not really that much. It can happen everything, basically. So they say it's like playing lottery. But they have a really interesting example I want to talk about. So they have the Bericht zur Risikoanalyse im Bevölkerungsschutz 2012, which is a report for risk analysis for civil protection from 2012. And the German government did a really interesting research on 2 simulation games. So the first one was on extreme floods via glacier. And the second one was a virus pandemic. Very interesting, 2012. The conclusion, it's really bad. It was really bad. And the person who were playing this simulation game, they were basically watching how it continued to become really bad. So they saw a rapid infection, which profits due to urban structures. which we all live in. If you live in Vienna or I live in Frankfurt. So we're basically living in this area and you know what happened. So the simulation predicts then that in 18 months, over 65 million people were dead. It's really interesting to see it backwards. And the knowledge of the simulation could have helped, right? Why was this data not used to learn, to improve, to prevent? So basically, the explanation for that by Schutz and Schwarz is that we learn no rules. We only learning facts. So this is not from Schutz and Schwarz, but they quote Taleb. He has a book, may some of you know them, Black Swan, and how we deal with crises. So our brain or disconnected facts are volatile for our brain, ergo we will forget them if they're not connected. So you could also say we have so many facts every day. We are so much reading. We are so influenced by social media, etc. You name it, that we have maybe a digital burnout as well. So this is really important, but also we have a problem on long-time learning through this. And repetition, as you know, as educators, is a central significance for the long memory. So people kind of adapt a routine of incompetence, you could say, according to Argyris, which basically means that people could have, they say, have a tunnel vision. They only focus and select particular things they are able to take as facts for their brain. So you could say your algorithm is already into a special kind of, how to say, is already focused on some information you gave in and follows the information you already typed in, or you're living in a bubble or a peer group which is talking about special things. So you will not get any information, any facts you are you maybe want. So also you have like another reason Schutz and Schwarz are saying is that we have also a defensive ideology against digitalization, solution thinking. So we have a lot of things who could be solved through digitalization, but are not because there's a really critical mindset. If it's AI or you name it, yeah. So everything is helpful on one side, and on the other side, it's criticized. Of course, there are very important reasons for that. But the conclusion is very interesting. So they say we have a verbal openness with extensive behavioral rigidity. So we are verbal open, but we don't act like we should. So this is really interesting if you create games, because it's not really easy to create complexity in games, obviously. So one must always be very aware of this complexity. It's not helpful to choose only preferred pieces of a complex problem in complicated parts. This is the first. Then often decisions or political decisions, and it's very explainable, are paired with an operative hectic. Yeah, if you have a flood in the neighborhood, you have to act. Thinking in separate, isolated solutions in its own controlled area where you are the expert for, instead of talking to other experts. And the problem is that the dependence isn't seen anymore. So that would be a suggestion: talk to experts and involve people with experience and learn from their perspective too. But most of the time, there's no time. So why are preventional inclusive games ideal for crisis prevention? So maybe if you think about your last first aid course, who did a recent first aid course? Oh, good. For some of you, it's a long time ago. Maybe you should do it again, because then you have a regular prevention practice. And of course, it's very practical that the rules for a fictional game scenario are not as stressful as the real scenario. So there are no real consequences. If the puppy dies, the puppy dies. Oh, I don't know, it's not a real human, at least. So yeah, maybe this encourages you to do a first aid course very soon. Also, you have a prepared society. you forget nobody. And inclusion is in game design, you may know, already possible via subtitles, easy language, different media, control options, contrast and community as well you can ask. And you should, like, as I mentioned later, talk to impaired people as well about their needs. So also very interesting is that a crisis not only creates problems, but also helps cities. If you have a flood, you are able to fill gaps of knowledge, question answers. You have accept organizers for infrastructure. You have everybody to make decisions, not only decision makers. You're learning in prevention without recognizing that it's learning. It's hard fun. Could do a quiz as well. Once produced and tested, it can be updated via OER. So are we ready for future challenges? Is SAG the answer? And if yes, what are social games? There are game concept and training games with challenging tasks or incentives. If you want to achieve a gamified consciousness for world challenges, you can do this by survival, sustainable training, design thinking solution, etc. You can have fitness, prevention, rehabilitation, strategy games, community-driven games with diversity inclusion. Games can help face the enormous challenges, and that's the benefit of it. Because you have out-of-the-box solution thinking. Single or cooperative, doesn't matter. You have the community for swarm intelligence. So I'm asking you, can we train crisis prevention in advance? So I have an example for it. You already know it probably. It's This War of Mine. It's a survival strategy game. It's the war perspective from a civilist point of view. And they call themselves, or self-proclamation is this anti-war game for themselves. It's already used in Poland's list of school recommendations, but for the higher pupils, 17 on or 16, 17 on. But you also have different examples. You probably know yourself some. There's also NASA climate kits. They have the subjects weather, climate, atmosphere, water, energy, plants and animals, which is really interesting to check it out for the kids. And where does this quote "hard fun" comes from? It's from the MIT professor Seymour Papert from 1989. Gaming for today's and future challenges for solutional thinking are not just skills for gaming, but for the real world too. It's not just hard work, it's also hard fun. And from Schutz and Schwarz is fail, fail, stand up. Gamers know this. Gamers love that, love to learn. So hard fun, what does it mean? Produce games for missing standards. Take the time and money for inclusion. It's available. It could be played by all people, not just some. Society is all of us. Leave no one behind. There's a lot of examples in very different, difficult situations who get left behind if you don't prepare like society for it, like in hospitals, people in wheelchairs, blind or deaf people, and it's important to have intrinsic motivation and do it on your own and not to be forced. Just do it on your own. And through character identification and an understanding of inclusion, you have this intrinsic motivation like we did in Lola. So the personal involvement creates assumption of responsibility for digital accessibility for inclusion. Goal is to do the tool to develop inclusive game for all kind of people and with the knowledge of game pedagogical and content knowledge. So using inclusive game design via the game accessibility guidelines. I already mentioned it last year too. And start with the basic. So there are several ideas how to do game design with the game accessibility guidelines. Please check it out. It's really explained and easy. So everybody can join the game. Digital accessibility is the key to play. And then, you ask yourself, who am I presenting when I create a game? And who is presented? And there are several questions you can ask yourself. But it's important to represent all kinds of people, scenarios, talk to impaired people about it, about their needs. And there's also interesting media stuff like leitmedien.de is a German, or materials done by teachers. There are plenty of websites who give you materials and ideas for diversity in games. So my conclusion is teach rules, not only facts. Take the time to repeat rules and the content, not just give new facts, but repeat the facts. Don't show don't show incomplex reactions to complex problems. And crisis can create opportunities and ways for civil engagement too. And consider this as inspiration for problem solving. Use an inclusive and diverse game design. Yeah, take your time to talk to people with an impairment and their needs. VUCA is helpful to face the future challenges. And most importantly, that should not be forgotten, have hard fun in making learning games as well. So this would be discussion. Which kind of social awareness games are possible, suitable, relevant? Can we try crisis prevention? How would it look like? In which field? Would it help prevent chaos and make society better? Is it effective hard fun? And does the education world need more game labs as well? Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer questions.